Most people tend to imagine that narcissists are immune to regret, that the way they move through the world, disconnected, grandiose, manipulative, is a sign of impenetrable self-certainty, but that belief is naive. It assumes that underneath the persona, there's nothing but emptiness, when in fact there's often something worse, a very real, very human pain that's been twisted so thoroughly it can no longer be acknowledged without shattering the entire structure of the self. And so regret doesn't present itself to the narcissist the way it does to you or me. It doesn't arrive with sorrow and humility. It comes masked. The narcissist, when confronted with the aftermath of their actions, seldom engages in genuine introspection. That's because to look inward is to encounter a terrifying void where self-awareness should reside. The rewriting of history is not just a convenient tactic, it is a psychological necessity. They bend reality, often subtly, sometimes overtly, because their survival depends on the maintenance of a coherent narrative in which they are always the victim or the hero, never the perpetrator. This distortion of events isn't limited to interpersonal relationships. It extends to every area of their life where responsibility threatens the facade they've constructed. If they were to admit the truth that they knowingly caused harm, that their manipulation had consequences, then the entire edifice of their personality would begin to collapse. But here's the important part. It's not that they don't know what they did. On some level, often buried deep beneath layers of rationalization and defense mechanisms, they do know. But that knowledge is so painful, so threatening to their fragile sense of self that it must be buried. And the most efficient way to bury it is to rewrite the script. They will claim that you were overly sensitive, that you misunderstood, that it was never as bad as you remember. And if those claims don't work, they'll escalate. They'll accuse you of betrayal, of being the manipulator, of turning others against them. It's all part of the same strategy, to distance themselves from the truth by projecting it onto others. What's fascinating is how convincingly they can embody the lie, because they're not lying in the traditional sense of consciously fabricating a falsehood. They are instead embodying a delusion that has become necessary for their psychological survival. And that's why confronting a narcissist with evidence or logic rarely produces the desired effect. It's not that they can't see the truth, it's that they can't afford to see it. Admitting to the betrayal, to the pain inflicted, would mean accepting that their self-perception is a lie. And for the narcissist, the lie is not a tool, it is their identity. This rewriting of history is also a form of emotional erasure. When they alter the narrative, they're not just protecting themselves, they're attempting to invalidate your experience. They want you to doubt your memory, to question your feelings, to eventually conclude that maybe it really was your fault after all. And if you're someone with empathy, someone who values introspection and growth, that strategy can be incredibly effective. You may start to think you overreacted, that you were too harsh, that you misunderstood their intentions. This is where the danger lies, not just in the narcissist's self-deception, but in their ability to draw you into it, to make you complicit in the rewriting of history. Over time, this process corrodes your sense of self. You stop trusting your intuition. You second-guess your emotions. You shrink. And as you do, the narcissist feels more secure because their reality is no longer being challenged. They don't have to confront their guilt if you've stopped holding them accountable. And this is how the cycle perpetuates. The more you doubt yourself, the more power they gain. The more you seek reconciliation, the more they feel justified in their behavior. But it's crucial to understand that this isn't a sign of strength on their part. It's not confidence or emotional resilience. It's avoidance rooted in fear. Their entire identity is built on a scaffolding of denial, and anything that threatens to shake that structure must be neutralized, whether through manipulation, gaslighting, or complete emotional withdrawal. Their rewriting of history isn't just a tactic. It's a symptom of a deeper pathology, a wound they refuse to acknowledge, a pain they refuse to process. What happens when you walk away, though, is revealing. Suddenly, they lose control of the narrative. They can no longer twist the story in real time, can no longer feed you the revised version of events, and that's when the cracks begin to show. In their absence, you begin to remember clearly. You begin to feel the weight of what was done to you without the pressure to rationalize it. And as your clarity grows, so does their desperation to reclaim the narrative. They might reach out, not to apologize, but to remind you of the story they want you to believe. They'll tell you that you misunderstood, that they never meant to hurt you, that you're being dramatic. But beneath those words is fear. Fear that the truth might escape, that the version of reality they need to survive is slipping out of their control. And that's why they rewrite history, because to face the truth would mean to face themselves. And for a narcissist, that's the most unbearable thing of all. So they create a world where they are blameless, and they force everyone around them to live in it, to uphold it, to validate it. And when you refuse to play along, when you hold on to your version of reality, you become dangerous. Not because you're cruel, but because you're honest. And honesty in a world built on denial is the greatest threat there is. The narcissist's need for control is insatiable, and the lengths they'll go to maintain that control are often staggering. This isn't simply a matter of wanting power for power's sake. It's about survival. For the narcissist, their very sense of self is fragile and dependent on external validation. They can't be content with a stable sense of self-worth that comes from within, because they don't truly have an inner core. Their identity is constructed, cobbled together from fragments of admiration, praise, and influence over others. The moment that control slips away, the foundation of their self-perception crumbles. And this is where the danger lies. Their inability to truly see themselves as they are, to acknowledge the harm they cause, or to face the internal emptiness that drives their behavior. Instead of confronting these uncomfortable truths, they choose to project their dysfunction outward. They lash out, gaslight, manipulate, and distort reality in an effort to keep you off balance, to make you question your own perceptions, and ultimately to reassert their dominance. They will not let the narrative go. They will not allow you to define your experience, because in doing so, they risk revealing their own vulnerability. But this pattern of behavior, as pervasive as it may be, is not without consequence. Narcissists believe they can control everything around them, including the people they interact with. But what happens when you stop engaging with their twisted games? What happens when you refuse to participate in the emotional tug of war they've been using to manipulate you? That's when their world begins to unravel. And the truth becomes clearer, not just to you, but to them as well. You stop playing the role they have cast you in, and they have to face a stark reality. When a narcissist inflicts harm, they do so with the belief that they are entitled to manipulate, control, and even destroy those around them. What's crucial to understand, however, is that the damage they cause is not always immediately apparent. Narcissists, by the nature of their condition, are often skilled at weaving intricate webs of deceit, gaslighting those in their orbit, and ensuring that the people they hurt are left doubting themselves. This is part of their psychological armor, an ability to avoid facing the consequences of their actions while maintaining a facade of power and control. But what happens when the truth starts to surface? When the victim begins to see through the facade and no longer plays along? At first, the narcissist may not even be aware of the effect they've had on you. Their sense of entitlement is so deeply ingrained that they view their actions as justified, even righteous. They take from others without remorse because they do not understand empathy in a genuine human sense. They might not even realize how destructive their behavior has been because they've crafted a narrative in their mind that makes them the hero of their own story. When you begin to challenge this narrative, when you start to say, no, that's not how it happened, it threatens the very foundation of their identity. And that, more than anything, terrifies them. This is where the real struggle begins. As the narcissist faces the unraveling of their carefully constructed world, they will try everything to restore it. They will manipulate the situation, shift blame, and twist words to avoid the discomfort of owning their actions. They may even feign remorse, but this remorse is never genuine. It's a tactical response, a way to reassert control over the situation without ever truly confronting the harm they've caused. But you can see through it. You see the cracks in the armor. And as these cracks grow, the narcissist will become more and more desperate. They will try to reestablish their dominance in various ways, often employing strategies like guilt tripping, emotional blackmail, or outright aggression. The narcissist cannot stand to be confronted with their true self, an insecure, fragile individual who relies on others for validation and control. So when the walls begin to close in, they lash out. They might tell you that you've misunderstood their intentions or that you've blown things out of proportion. They might even make you question your own memory or perception of events. But these tactics aren't about repairing the relationship. They're about maintaining power. The narcissist is not interested in mutual understanding or healing. They only want to maintain their control over the situation, regardless of the cost to you. What's truly devastating is that this dynamic can lead the victim to believe they are the problem. After all, when someone denies their behavior so vehemently, when they twist the truth so consistently, it becomes harder to trust your own instincts. But it's essential to understand that the narcissist's power lies in this confusion. They thrive on the uncertainty they create, as it keeps you in a perpetual state of self-doubt. They want you to question your perception of reality because this keeps them in control. If they can get you to doubt your experience, they can avoid accountability. And that's the true danger of engaging with a narcissist, the erosion of your sense of self. The truth, however, is that the narcissist's ultimate fear is exposure. It's not necessarily the loss of the relationship, but the loss of their constructed reality. The truth about their behavior, their lies, and their manipulation is what they fear the most. Because beneath all their bravado and arrogance, they know they are empty. They know that the power they wield over others is a fragile illusion, built on deceit and the subjugation of others. And when that illusion begins to crumble, when people stop believing in the false narratives they've created, the narcissist faces the terrifying prospect of being exposed for who they truly are. At this point, the narcissist might attempt to destroy the messenger, the person who threatens to reveal the truth. They will do everything in their power to discredit you, to turn others against you, to make you feel isolated and alone. But this is where the narcissist's true weakness is revealed. The more they try to silence the truth, the more it becomes apparent to those around them that something is amiss. The narcissist's tactics may work temporarily, but over time, the weight of their actions becomes impossible to ignore. And eventually, even the narcissist's closest allies may begin to see through the facade. When that happens, the narcissist's world starts to fall apart. But here's the thing. The narcissist will never, ever acknowledge their wrongs. They will not admit to the pain they've caused or take responsibility for their behavior. They might say they regret their actions, but these are hollow words designed to regain control, not to heal. The narcissist will continue to manipulate, control, and distort reality in an attempt to protect their fragile ego. They will never admit that they've hurt you, and they will never face the true weight of their actions. Instead, they will continue to live in the delusion that they are the victim, that they are entitled to everything they take, and that the damage they've caused is someone else's fault. And that's the most tragic part of all, because the narcissist is not capable of change. They are so entrenched in their own distorted view of reality that they cannot and will not see the truth. They will carry on unrepentant and unacknowledging of the destruction they've left in their wake. But while they may never admit their wrongdoing, that does not mean their actions go unnoticed. You see, the real power comes not from their ability to control and manipulate, but from your ability to see them for what they are. Once you recognize the truth, once you stop playing their game, you reclaim your power. And in doing so, you break free from the cycle of manipulation and deceit. The narcissist can no longer control you. When engaging with a narcissist, one of the most insidious effects they have on their victims is the erosion of their sense of self-worth. The narcissist does not just seek to control, they seek to dominate the narrative, to manipulate the way others see them, and by extension, to define how others see themselves. This control is not overt at first, it is subtle, creeping into every interaction, every conversation, until the victim finds themselves questioning their reality. The narcissist uses tactics such as gaslighting, emotional manipulation, and calculated charm to destabilize their victim's perception, all while maintaining an image of themselves as the victim. The one who is misunderstood, the one who is always right. A narcissist's ability to project an image of superiority is an essential part of their survival. They are not simply acting for the benefit of others. They are constructing a false narrative that sustains their fragile sense of self. They may appear confident, even brilliant, but beneath the surface lies a profound insecurity. Their entire sense of identity is based on how others perceive them, and this dependency can manifest in unhealthy relationships where the narcissist seeks validation at every turn. The more they feed off the admiration and approval of others, the more they need it. This is not just a desire for praise, it is an existential need. Without this external validation, they feel insignificant, invisible, and powerless. In these interactions, the narcissist will often deploy subtle but highly effective forms of manipulation. They will find ways to undermine your confidence and sense of self by questioning your decisions, belittling your accomplishments, or casting doubt on your intentions. Their tactics are often cloaked in flattery or false concern, making it difficult for you to recognize them for what they truly are. This leaves you questioning yourself, feeling less secure, less capable, and ultimately more dependent on their approval. This pattern of behavior wears down your self-esteem, and in time you begin to doubt your own worth. The more you seek validation from the narcissist, the more you give them control over your emotions and your actions. The narcissist's emotional manipulation can also take the form of unpredictable moods. They may swing from charm to cruelty, from warmth to indifference, leaving you constantly on edge, unsure of how to navigate their ever-changing temperaments. This instability is deliberate. By keeping you in a state of uncertainty, they can keep you chasing after their approval. They create a dynamic where you are always striving to win back their affection, always trying to avoid their wrath. In doing so, they keep you off balance, never allowing you to assert yourself or prioritize your needs over theirs. Perhaps the most damaging aspect of engaging with a narcissist, however, is the way they invert the power dynamic. Instead of you asserting your boundaries, you find yourself constantly defending your position, trying to explain your actions, trying to justify your feelings. The narcissist does not see your perspective as valid. They see their needs, their desires, their worldview as the only truth, and they will often go to great lengths to silence any alternative views. This can manifest in the form of overt criticism, subtle jabs, or dismissive behavior. Over time, this reinforces the narcissist worldview and undermines your sense of autonomy. You start to feel like you are constantly defending yourself, never truly heard or understood. This dynamic can become even more damaging when the narcissist begins to isolate you from others. Isolation is a powerful tool for control. By distancing you from your support network, the narcissist ensures that their influence remains unchallenged. If they can keep you away from friends, family, or anyone who might offer a different perspective, they can ensure that their version of reality remains the dominant one. This tactic can leave you feeling utterly alone, disconnected from the outside world, and more reliant on the narcissist for emotional support. Over time, this creates a toxic dependency, where the narcissist becomes the center of your emotional universe, and any external input is seen as a threat to their control. At some point, the emotional toll becomes impossible to ignore. You begin to feel drained, depleted, and disconnected from who you once were. Your thoughts are consumed by the narcissist's demands and behavior. You find yourself constantly walking on eggshells, trying to avoid conflict, seeking ways to make them happy, all while neglecting your own well-being. The longer you remain in this dynamic, the harder it becomes to break free. You may start to believe that the narcissist's behavior is your fault, that you are the one who has failed to meet their needs, or that you are somehow unworthy of love and respect. This is the true danger of the narcissist's control. By constantly undermining your confidence and shifting the blame onto you, they create a self-fulfilling prophecy. You begin to internalize their criticism, losing sight of your own strengths and qualities. But the damage doesn't end with just emotional manipulation. Narcissists can also inflict lasting harm through financial or social control. They may try to dictate how you spend your money, what career choices you make, or who you are allowed to associate with. These tactics are intended to keep you dependent on them in every way, making it harder for you to leave or stand up for yourself. When combined with emotional manipulation, it creates a cycle of dependency that is difficult to break. The narcissist's ultimate goal is not just control, but complete domination. They want to shape you into a version of yourself that serves their needs. They do not see you as an individual with your own wants and desires, but as an extension of their ego. As long as you remain in their grip, they will continue to take from you, to drain you of your energy and your sense of self-worth. However, the longer you stay in this toxic dynamic, the more you risk losing touch with who you truly are. Reclaiming your identity, your boundaries, and your sense of self is a critical step toward breaking free from this cycle. It is important to recognize that healing from the narcissist influence is not instantaneous. It takes time and effort to rebuild the parts of yourself that the narcissist has eroded. But the first step in this process is to acknowledge the power the narcissist has over you. Recognizing their tactics, their manipulation, and their need for control is essential in regaining your sense of autonomy. Once you understand how they operate, you can begin to reassert your own boundaries and values and start the process of healing. Breaking free from a narcissist's grip is not just about removing them from your life. It's about reclaiming your power, your worth, and your ability to define your own reality. When you are faced with a narcissist, one of the most deceptive traits they have is their ability to manipulate and control the people around them. This manipulation often goes unnoticed at first because narcissists are skilled in the art of charm. They have an uncanny ability to make people feel important, special, and needed, especially when they are trying to get something from them. But behind this polished exterior, there is a consistent pattern of deceit, exploitation, and emotional abuse that ultimately reveals itself over time. Narcissists are not concerned with others' needs or feelings. Rather, they are only interested in satisfying their own egos. They thrive on attention, admiration, and the feeling that they are superior to those around them. They create an environment where they are the center of focus, manipulating others into believing that their needs should always come first. This is not just a preference for attention, it is a survival mechanism. Without this constant validation and recognition, the narcissist feels small, insignificant, and vulnerable. They desperately need others to fuel their inflated sense of self. One of the most dangerous aspects of interacting with a narcissist is the way they erode your sense of self-worth. Over time, they manage to convince you that your needs are secondary to theirs. They create a dynamic where you are always walking on eggshells, second-guessing your thoughts, emotions, and actions. Every decision, every word, every gesture is scrutinized under their harsh judgment. This leads you to believe that you are not worthy of love, respect, or admiration unless it is granted by them. The narcissist is not interested in forming genuine connections or relationships based on mutual respect. They only care about what they can extract from others. Their constant emotional manipulation can take many forms. They may use guilt as a weapon, accusing you of being selfish for wanting time or attention for yourself. They may demand that you prove your loyalty or devotion, testing you at every turn to see how far they can push you. This constant testing is not done out of love. It is done to establish control. They want to see how much they can get away with, how much they can make you bend to their will. In doing so, they undermine your confidence, leaving you questioning your own boundaries and desires. Perhaps one of the most insidious traits of a narcissist is their ability to gaslight. This form of psychological manipulation involves making you doubt your reality. They may deny events that have occurred, rewrite history to suit their narrative, or accuse you of overreacting when you express your emotions. This tactic is particularly damaging because it causes you to lose touch with your own perception of reality. You begin to doubt your own memories, your own feelings, and even your own judgments. The narcissist, in their desire to maintain control, systematically dismantles your sense of self so that you become more dependent on them for guidance, approval, and validation. This dependence creates a cycle where you are constantly trying to please the narcissist. You are always attempting to meet their expectations, to live up to their demands, to make them happy. The problem is that no matter how much you give, it is never enough. The narcissist is never satisfied, always hungry for more. They will continue to take and take, never giving anything back. They will drain you emotionally, mentally, and even physically until you are left exhausted and empty, but still unsure of how to break free from their grip. As time goes on, the narcissist's behavior may become more erratic. They may become cruel, indifferent, or even hostile when they do not get the attention or admiration they crave. Their mood swings and emotional outbursts are designed to keep you off balance. They want you to be constantly seeking their approval, constantly trying to appease them. This erratic behavior creates an environment where you are always walking on edge, never knowing when the next emotional storm will hit. You may start to feel like you are living in a constant state of turmoil where nothing you do seems to make any difference. The narcissist, in their quest for control, will also work to isolate you from others. They may try to distance you from your friends, family, or anyone who might offer you an alternative perspective. They want to be the center of your world, and they will go to great lengths to ensure that you have no one else to turn to. Isolation is one of the most effective ways that they maintain their power over you. With no outside influence, you are left alone with their distorted view of reality, constantly questioning yourself and your worth. But even though the narcissist may seem invincible in their manipulation, their need for control ultimately betrays them. The more they demand, the more they take, the more they expose their true nature. They may present themselves as confident, as all-knowing, as above reproach, but deep down they are driven by fear. The fear of being exposed, the fear of being vulnerable, the fear of being unmasked as the fragile, insecure individuals they truly are. They may try to convince themselves that they are above others, but deep down, they are terrified of being seen for who they really are. The narcissist's greatest fear is being abandoned. This fear drives their behavior, their manipulation, and their constant need for validation. If you are able to walk away, to break free from their control, it is a blow to their ego. It is an affront to everything they have built up in their mind about themselves. When you refuse to engage in their emotional manipulation, when you assert your boundaries, when you stop chasing their approval, they are forced to confront their own emptiness. They will never admit this to you, of course. They will never acknowledge the regret, the self-loathing that simmers beneath the surface. Instead, they will try to rewrite the story, casting themselves as the victim, as the one who has been wronged. But the truth remains that their ability to manipulate, to control, and to diminish others is a reflection of their own internal turmoil. The narcissist is not as powerful as they appear. They are simply a person terrified of their own vulnerabilities, terrified of being exposed for the hollow shell they are.